The crystal caves of Turthos Prime glowed with a soft blue light that had burned for millions of years. Deep inside these caves, past security systems that could kill a person in seconds, lay the Velkar archives. Most people in the galaxy had forgotten these archives existed. Those who remembered thought they held nothing but old stories and dead languages. Elder Zinthar knew better. He had spent 300 years of his long life reading the forbidden texts stored in the deepest vaults. His 6 eyes ached from the strain, and his translator crystal flickered with age, but he could not stop reading. What he found in those ancient records filled him with a fear he had never known before. The progenitors had written these warnings. They were the first intelligent species in the galaxy, the ones who had seeded life on 1,000 worlds before vanishing into history. Their technology was so advanced that modern civilizations could barely understand it. Their wisdom was supposedly unmatched, and they had been terrified of a species that did not even have space travel yet. They had been afraid of humans. Zinthar read the reports again and again, hoping he had misunderstood. The progenitors had observed Earth during what humans called their medieval period. They had watched humans fight wars that killed millions. They had seen plagues wipe out entire continents. They had witnessed disasters that should have ended human civilization dozens of times, but humans never gave up. They never accepted defeat. When a plague killed half their population, the survivors built better cities and invented new medicine. When wars destroyed their kingdoms, they built new ones stronger than before. When nature tried to kill them with ice ages and volcanic winters, they adapted and spread to every corner of their world. The progenitors had run calculations. They had used computers that could predict the rise and fall of civilizations with perfect accuracy. Every simulation gave the same result. If humanity ever reached the stars, if they ever faced a threat that tried to destroy them completely, they would not just fight back. They would make destroying their enemy the single most important goal of their entire species. They would never stop, never forgive, and never forget. The progenitors had written one sentence in their own language, which Zinthar's translator rendered simply, "Do not provoke them, ever." Zinthar gathered all his evidence and requested an emergency meeting with the Galactic Council. It took him 2 months to get approval. When he finally stood in the grand chamber of Meridian 7 Station, he faced representatives from 40 different species. Most looked bored. Some were checking their communication devices. Only a few paid attention as he began his presentation. "Honored members of the council," Zinthar began, his voice shaking slightly. "I come before you with a warning from the progenitors themselves. There is a species that has recently achieved faster than light travel. They call themselves humans. We must establish strict protocols for dealing with them." Council Director Veshinar, an historian whose people had ruled their corner of space peacefully for 10,000 years, raised one elegant hand. "Elder Zinthar, we are aware of humanity. They have 3 small colonies and a fleet of perhaps 200 ships. Many of those ships are converted civilian vessels. They pose no threat to anyone." "That is exactly what makes them dangerous," Zinthar insisted. He activated the holographic display, showing images of human history. "Look at their past. They have fought over 5,000 major wars. They have survived 12 extinction-level events. They have turned every disaster into an opportunity to grow stronger." A representative from the Koran Collective, a species known for their logical thinking, spoke up. "Elder, many species have violent histories. The Krill Dominion has conquered 40 star systems through military force. The Zenthari clans have been raiding trade routes for centuries. Why should we fear humans specifically?" Zinthar pulled up more data. "Because humans are different. Other species fight for resources, territory, or dominance. Humans fight for spite. They will spend everything they have, sacrifice everything they love, and work for generations just to prove someone wrong." The progenitors observed them carefully. In one of their wars, a small nation was invaded by a much larger empire. Logic said they should surrender. Instead, they fought for 6 years, lost millions of people, destroyed their own infrastructure, and burned their own cities rather than let the empire have them. "They won." "Ancient history," Veshinar said dismissively. "Surely they have evolved past such behavior. 200 years ago they split the atom," Zinthar continued. "Within months they had built bombs that could destroy cities. They used 2 of them to end a war. Then, realizing how dangerous these weapons were, they built thousands more. When asked why, their leaders said it was to make sure no one would ever use them. They created weapons of mass destruction as a deterrence. Does that sound like a species that has evolved past violence? The council chamber filled with the sounds of various species expressing doubt, amusement, or concern. Zinthar felt his heart sink. They were not taking this seriously. We have real problems, Veshnar said firmly. The Krill Dominion has been expanding aggressively. 3 minor species have lost their homeworlds in the last decade. The Krill fleet numbers over 50,000 warships. That is where our attention should be focused, not on a species with barely 200 ships. Zinthar tried one last time. Director, please listen. The progenitors calculated a 97% probability that if humanity ever faces extinction-level aggression, they will not simply defend themselves. They will make it their mission to ensure whoever threatened them is completely destroyed. Not defeated, not driven back. Destroyed so thoroughly that they can never threaten anyone again. Elder Zinthar, Veshnar said with forced patience. The progenitors vanished millions of years ago. Their warnings, if they ever existed, are about a species that has grown and changed. Modern humans are explorers and traders. They have shown no signs of aggression. Your fears are based on ancient data about primitive humans. We have current concerns that require our attention. The council voted. 40 representatives voted to table Zinthar's warning indefinitely. 3 voted to investigate further. None voted to take immediate action. Zinthar left the chamber feeling cold despite the station's comfortable temperature. He knew what was coming. Somewhere in the galaxy, someone would make a terrible mistake. Someone would see humanity's small fleet and few colonies and think they were weak. Someone would attack them thinking it would be easy. That someone would learn the truth too late. 3 months passed. Zinthar continued his research, hoping he was wrong. Maybe humans had changed. Maybe the progenitors had been mistaken. Maybe the galaxy would be lucky and no one would be stupid enough to attack a species they knew nothing about. Then the news came through every communication channel in the galaxy. The Krill Dominion had made first contact with humanity's outermost colony. The colony was called New Boston, located in a system the humans designated Kepler 442. It had a population of 700,000 people. It was defended by a single orbital platform with a crew of 48. Commander Jake Morrison was in charge of that platform. He was 32 years old, a veteran of Earth's orbital construction projects, and had never fired a weapon in anger in his entire life. When 16 Krill warships appeared in orbit around New Boston, his crew expected him to contact Earth for instructions. Instead, Jake sent a message directly to the Krill fleet. The message was simple, only 7 words long, but it would echo through galactic history forever. New Boston doesn't surrender. Not today. Not ever. The Krill response was immediate. 16 warships opened fire on the orbital platform. The platform, designed to track asteroids and help guide cargo ships, had no real weapons and no military-grade shields. It lasted 8 seconds before exploding in a ball of superheated metal and plasma. Then the Krill turned their weapons on the colony below. They used nuclear weapons, the kind that could boil oceans and crack continental plates. New Boston died in fire. 700,000 men, women, and children were vaporized in less than an hour. The Krill made sure to broadcast the destruction across all frequencies. Their message was clear. Humanity would submit to the Krill Dominion or face complete extermination. Zinthar watched the broadcast from his archive chamber. His hands shook so badly he could barely work his controls. They had done it. The Krill had actually done it. They had not just attacked humans. They had committed genocide against civilians and bragged about it. The galaxy waited for humanity's response. Everyone expected panic. They expected desperate pleas for peace. They expected humanity to surrender immediately before the Krill destroyed more colonies. Instead, every human colony went completely dark. Every human ship stopped broadcasting. Every communication channel from human space went silent. For 6 hours, the galaxy heard nothing. Then a single message came from Earth. It was broadcast on every frequency, translated into every known language, and delivered by a man who identified himself as General Victor Hayes, commander of Human Defense Forces. The message was short. We are going dark for 6 months. Tell the Krill we will see them soon. Then silence. Complete and total silence. The Galactic Council held emergency meetings. The Krill Dominion sent messages demanding humanity's surrender. 6 months of silence can feel like an eternity when you are waiting for war. The galaxy watched human space like people watching a storm gather on the horizon. Everyone knew something terrible was coming. Nobody knew exactly what. The Krill Dominion sent 3 more fleets to human borders during those 6 months. Each time they broadcast demands for surrender. Each time they received no response. Human colonies remained dark. Human ships stayed hidden. The borders of human space became a wall of silence that nothing could penetrate. Warlord Kreshtar, supreme commander of the Krill military, addressed his war council with confidence. The humans are cowering in their holes like wounded animals. They know they cannot fight us. When the 6 months end, they will beg for mercy. We will accept nothing less than complete surrender. Every human world will become a Krill colony. Their species will serve us or die. His generals agreed enthusiastically. The Krill had never lost a war. Their fleet was the largest in the galaxy. They had weapons that could destroy planets. What could humans possibly do in 6 months that would matter? Elder Zinthar knew exactly what humans could do. He spent those 6 months studying every piece of human history he could access. He read about their wars, their disasters, their defeats, and their victories. A pattern emerged that filled him with dread. Humans did their best work when they were angry. When the Japanese Empire attacked Pearl Harbor in their Second World War, America had been peaceful and unprepared. 4 years later, America had built the largest military force ever seen on Earth and had developed nuclear weapons. When terrorists attacked New York City in 2001, the United States had reorganized their entire security structure within months. When the COVID pandemic hit in 2020, they had developed vaccines in less than a year using technology that had taken decades to perfect. Humans did not just react to threats. They transformed their entire civilization to meet them. Zinthar tried to warn the council again. He was denied a hearing. He tried to contact Krill leadership directly. His messages were ignored. He tried to reach out to other species, hoping someone would listen. A few did, but most thought he was overreacting. One person who believed him was Ambassador Kira Ven, a human diplomat stationed on Meridian 7. She had been one of the few humans not recalled to Earth during the silence. When Zinthar finally managed to meet her in a private room, she looked tired but calm. "You know what is happening on Earth, don't you?" Zinthar asked. Kira nodded slowly. "I can guess. I grew up studying military history. I wrote my thesis on America's industrial mobilization during World War II. They turned automobile factories into tank factories in months. They built over 300,000 aircraft in 4 years. An entire generation learned to build weapons instead of consumer goods. And now?" Zinthar asked. "Now we have better technology, better organization, and a whole species that just watched 700,000 civilians get murdered on live broadcast." Kira's voice was quiet, but her eyes were hard. "Elder, my grandmother lived in New Boston. She taught kindergarten. She was reading stories to 5-year-old children when the bombs fell. Every human knows someone who died that day. Every single one of us. What will your people do?" Kira looked out the window at the stars. "We will do what we always do when someone pushes us too far. We will make them regret it for the rest of their existence." On Earth, General Victor Hayes stood in the War Command Center that had been built 2 miles underground in just 8 weeks. The room was the size of a football field and filled with displays, communication stations, and the best military minds humanity had to offer. Every expert who had ever studied warfare, engineering, or strategy now worked here with unlimited funding and a single mission: make the Krill pay. Dr. Lisa Campbell headed the Weapons Research Division. She was a physicist who had spent her career studying peaceful applications of fusion power. Now she designed ways to kill as many Krill as possible with each shot. Her team had been working nonstop for 4 months. "We have militarized everything," she reported to Hayes. "Every mine, every factory, every research facility is now producing weapons. We have converted our entire industrial base to war production." "Numbers," Hayes said simply. "We are building 400 combat-capable ships per week. Next month we hit 500 per week. By month 6 we will have over 10,000 new vessels. They are not pretty. They are not meant to last. But they will kill Krill." Captain Ryan Foster from Naval Engineering added his report. "We have redesigned our entire approach to space combat. The Krill use massive battleships that are built to last decades. We are building ships that only need to last long enough to destroy 1 or 2 enemy vessels. Some of them are basically missiles with engines and a crew." Hayes looked at the production charts. In 6 months, humanity would have a larger fleet than they had possessed in their entire history. The ships would be rough, dangerous to operate, and likely to fall apart after a few battles. But they would exist in numbers that could overwhelm even Krill defenses through sheer mass. "What about Project Tombstone?" Hayes asked quietly. The room fell silent. Everyone knew about Tombstone. Everyone wished they did not have to know about it. Lisa's expression went dark. "It works. We have tested it on remote asteroids. The results are exactly what we calculated. It is the most horrifying weapon humanity has ever created. If we use it, the galaxy will never trust us again. If the Krill glass another colony, the galaxy can think whatever it wants," Hayes replied coldly. "We need weapons that make them afraid to attack us. Tombstone does that." Project Tombstone was built on theoretical physics that most species considered impossible. Humans had made it possible in 4 months. The weapon created microscopic black holes and launched them at near light speed. Anything in the path would be consumed. Ships, stations, even small moons would be torn apart by gravity so intense that matter itself broke down. It was the kind of weapon that violated every galactic treaty on warfare. It was also the kind of weapon that humans built when you murdered their children. Across human space, every adult between 18 and 50 underwent military training. Factory workers spent their days building weapons and their evenings learning how to fight. Scientists designed new technologies in the morning and practiced combat drills in the afternoon. Even children as young as 10 learned basic survival skills and evacuation procedures. Earth's entire economy had been restructured in weeks. Money meant nothing anymore. There was only one currency that mattered. How much can you contribute to the war effort? Farmers grew food. Engineers built weapons. Doctors prepared for casualties. Everyone had a role. Everyone understood why the Krill had killed New Boston. Now New Boston would have its revenge, paid for by an entire species working as one. 5 months into the silence, the Krill grew impatient. They sent a second fleet to New Shanghai, humanity's second largest colony in the Tau Ceti system. 30 Krill warships arrived expecting to find a terrified population ready to surrender. Instead, they found a trap that had taken 5 months to prepare. The space around Tau Ceti had been seeded with thousands of nuclear mines, each one hidden and waiting. As the Krill fleet moved into the system, the mines activated. The explosions lit up space like a deadly firework display. But the mines were just the opening move. Hidden behind Tau Ceti's asteroid belt, 20 human ships waited. They were new construction, built in the last 3 months specifically for this battle. Each ship carried kinetic weapons that fired solid metal slugs at incredible speeds. The Krill shields were designed to absorb and dissipate energy weapons like lasers and plasma. They had never been tested against solid projectiles moving at significant fractions of light speed. The slugs punched through the shields like they were paper. Commander Danny Morris led the human attack from his ship, the New Boston Revenge. His crew had trained for 3 months. Most of them had never been in space combat before. Many of them had lost family in New Boston. They did not care about survival. They cared about making the Krill pay. "All ships fire everything," Danny ordered. "If we die today, we take as many of them with us as possible." "For New Boston." "For New Boston," his crew echoed. The battle lasted 8 minutes. In that time, 20 human ships destroyed 27 Krill warships. 3 Krill ships escaped to report what had happened. Not a single human ship survived. Every crew member had known this would be a one-way mission. They had volunteered anyway. Their last transmission was broadcast across all frequencies. "New Boston sends its regards." The galaxy reeled from the news. Humans had not just fought back. They had won a battle against superior numbers using weapons and tactics no one had seen before. The Krill lost more ships in 8 minutes than they had lost in the last century of warfare. Warlord Kreshtar rage could be heard across 3 star systems. "Mobilize the entire fleet. We will jump directly to Earth and end this species before they become more dangerous. Assemble every warship we have. We will show them what real power looks like." The Galactic Council sent desperate messages to both sides. There must be peace. There must be negotiation. "This war will destroy both of you," General Hayes responded publicly. His message was broadcast on every channel in the galaxy. The Krill chose genocide. They killed civilians. They bragged about it. They demanded our. The Krill assembled their fleet at the edge of their territory. 8,000 warships gathered in formation, the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. Each ship bristled with weapons capable of destroying cities. Their flagship, the Eternal Talon, was 3 kilometers of pure destructive power commanded by Warlord Kreshitar himself. The plan was simple and brutal. Jump directly to Earth, overwhelm their defenses, end humanity in one decisive strike. The Krill had done this to dozens of species before. It always worked. It would work again. They were wrong. When the Krill fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system, they found something unexpected. The space around them erupted with thousands of small objects, each no bigger than a car. They were autonomous drones, too small for Krill targeting systems to effectively track, too numerous to avoid. Each drone carried a single nuclear warhead and basic artificial intelligence with one simple instruction. Find a weak point on any Krill ship and detonate. The explosions began immediately. Hundreds of Krill ships died in the first 30 seconds as drones slammed into engine ports, weapon bays, and bridge sections. The shields that protected against energy weapons did nothing against physical impacts from objects too small to trigger the defensive systems properly, but the drones were just the opening. Hoof. While the Krill fleet focused on destroying the drone swarm, human ships appeared throughout the solar system. They were not grouped together in one defensive position like the Krill expected. They were everywhere, behind Jupiter's moons, hidden in Saturn's rings, floating dormant in the asteroid belt, even in orbit around Earth's moon. Lieutenant Commander Angela Brooks commanded the 3rd Attack Squadron from behind the moon. Her ship, the Defiant, had been built in 6 weeks from converted mining equipment and salvaged parts. It shook when the engines ran at full power, and sometimes the hull plating glowed red from stress. But it had guns and it had engines, and Angela had a score to settle. Her brother had been a teacher on New Boston. He had died protecting his students during the bombardment, trying to get them to shelters that would never save them. All ships Alpha Pattern, Angela ordered. Hit hard, move fast, never stop. Make them pay for every second they are in our system. The human fleet did not fight like any military force the Krill had ever faced. There were no formations, no textbook tactics, no traditional strategy. Human ships fought like desperate animals backed into a corner. When they ran out of ammunition, they rammed enemy vessels. When their weapons failed, they used their engines to crash into Krill ships. When life support failed, captains would vent atmosphere to create thrust for one final attack run. Some ships were designed to do nothing but crash into the enemy at maximum speed, piloted by volunteers who knew they would not survive. Captain Danny Walsh piloted such a ship. His wife and 2 daughters had lived on New Boston. He volunteered for this mission the day after they died. His ship was essentially a massive engine with a reinforced nose cone and just enough life support to get him to the target. "This is for Jenny and the girls," he said quietly as he aimed his ship at a Krill carrier. "See you soon." His ship hit the carrier at .4 light speed. The explosion destroyed 4 nearby Krill vessels and crippled 2 more. The Krill were winning by numbers, but every victory cost them dearly. For every human ship destroyed, they lost 2 of their own. The mathematics was simple and terrible. At this rate, even if they destroyed every human vessel, they would lose half their fleet doing it. On Earth, General Hayes watched the battle displays with cold calculation. The orbital defenses were holding, but barely. 3 Krill bombardment groups had broken through. Mexico City was gone. Berlin was a crater. Tokyo burned. But Earth's hastily constructed shield network had stopped the worst of the bombardment. Billions of people were dead or dying. Every major city was under attack. The Krill were trying to exterminate his species right in front of his eyes. "Status on Tombstone?" Hayes asked. Dr. Lisa Campbell's hands were shaking. "Locked on target. Awaiting authorization. Victor, if we fire this weapon, we can never take it back. The galaxy will call us monsters." Hayes looked at the casualty reports scrolling across multiple screens. Every number represented hundreds or thousands of dead humans. Men, women, children who had done nothing except exist in the way of Krill expansion. "Then we will be monsters who survive," he said. "Fire Tombstone." Deep beneath the surface of Earth's moon, in a facility that had been built in absolute secrecy over 4 months, Project Tombstone activated. The weapon used physics that violated several natural laws and required the energy output of a small star to operate. It created a microscopic black hole, stabilized it for exactly 3 seconds, and launched it at 90% light speed toward the Krill flagship. The Eternal Talon's shields did not even slow it down. The black hole punched through the shields, through the armor, through the ship itself. In 3 seconds, it had consumed the entire flagship from the inside out. Warlord Creshter and 3,000 Krill crew members died instantly, crushed into a point smaller than an atom. But the black hole did not stop. It continued on its trajectory, tearing through 6 more Krill warships before finally evaporating, according to the principles of Hawking radiation that humans had weaponized. 7 of the most powerful warships in the galaxy were gone. Just gone, not destroyed, not even debris. They had been consumed by a weapon that should not exist. General Hayes broadcast on all frequencies, speaking directly to whoever was now commanding the Krill fleet. You wanted to erase us from existence. You failed. Stand down now or we fire another tombstone. We have 12 of these weapons ready to fire. How many ships are you willing to lose today? How many of your people will you sacrifice before you realize you made a mistake? The Krill fleet hesitated. In that moment of confusion and fear, humanity pressed their advantage. Every remaining ship, every satellite with weapons, every jury-rigged platform launched everything they had. It was not coordinated. It was not pretty. It was raw desperation and fury made real. Commander Paul Henderson piloted a bomber that was held together with emergency sealant and prayer. His engines were failing. His weapons were empty. His ship was literally on fire, trailing atmosphere and debris, but he could still control the flight path. For New Boston, he screamed into his communication system, for every person they murdered. Remember us. His ship crashed directly into a Krill carrier. The resulting explosion took out 4 nearby vessels and damaged 3 more. Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out. Human crews who should have retreated instead charged forward. Ships that should have been scuttled were used as weapons. Every human seemed to have decided that if they were going to die, they would take as many Krill with them as possible. The battle raged for 18 hours straight. When it finally ended, the Krill had lost 4,000 ships. Humanity's orbital defense fleet was effectively destroyed. Less than 300 human vessels remained combat-capable, but Earth still stood. Scarred, burning with billions dead but still standing, the surviving Krill fleet retreated, not in defeat but to regroup and reassess. They had never faced an enemy like this. Every species they had ever conquered had valued survival over victory. They would fight until the cost became too high, then surrender. Humans apparently had no concept of acceptable losses. They fought like every battle was their last. They treated every ship as ammunition. They turned desperation into a weapon more dangerous than anything in their arsenal. The Krill had destroyed Mexico City, Berlin, Tokyo, and a dozen other major population centers. They had killed over 3 billion humans. By any logical measure, humanity should be begging for peace. Instead, within hours of the Krill retreat, human colonies across space came back online. Every colony, every ship, every station broadcast the same message. Earth stands. The war continues. We do not forgive. We do not forget. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Elder Zinthar stood before them once more, but this time every representative listened. I warned you, he said quietly. I told you what would happen if someone tried to exterminate humanity. The Krill have learned the first lesson. Humans do not surrender. Now they will learn the second lesson. Humans do not stop. Council Director Vishnar looked shaken. What do you mean? The Krill think they won because they destroyed human cities, Zinthar explained. They think humanity will now accept peace terms. They are wrong. Humans have only one peace term now. Complete Krill defeat. They will not stop fighting until the Krill Dominion no longer exists. That is genocide, someone protested. No, Zinthar corrected. That is justice. The Krill started this by glassing New Boston. They continued it by trying to destroy Earth. Now humanity will finish it. I have studied their history. When Americans went to war in 1941, they did not stop until their enemies surrendered unconditionally. When they fought terrorism, they hunted terrorists for decades. Humans do not do half measures. They do not do partial victories. They win completely or die trying. So can we stop them? Veshnar asked. No. And I do not think we should try, Zinthar replied. The Krill chose genocide. Now they will face the consequences. The only question is whether the rest of the galaxy is smart enough to. The Galactic Council sent urgent messages to both Earth and the Krill homeworld. They offered mediation, peace talks, reparations. They promised to hold trials for war crimes. They pleaded for both sides to stop before more lives were lost. The Krill, shocked by their losses at Earth, agreed to negotiations. They had lost 4,000 ships and their supreme commander. A negotiated peace suddenly seemed wise. General Victor Hayes read the Council's proposal in his underground command center. Around him, displays showed the ongoing cleanup of Earth's devastated cities. The death toll had reached 4 billion and was still climbing. He read the proposal twice, then typed a single-word response. No. The Council's representative, a diplomat named Sorval, contacted Hayes directly. General, surely you understand that continued warfare serves no one. The Krill are willing to discuss terms. The Krill should have discussed terms before they glassed New Boston, Hayes replied coldly. They should have talked before they tried to exterminate my species. Now they get to learn what it feels like. You cannot be serious about continuing this war. The cost in lives will be unthinkable. Hayes leaned forward so his face filled the video screen. Let me be very clear, diplomat. Humanity will accept nothing less than the complete dismantling of the Krill Dominion. Their military will be destroyed. Their government will surrender unconditionally. Every Krill who participated in the New Boston massacre will face trial and execution. These terms are not negotiable. They are inevitable. He cut the connection before Sorval could respond. Hayes then broadcast a message on all galactic frequencies. Every species in known space received it. The Krill Dominion started this war by murdering 700,000 civilians. They continued it by trying to destroy Earth. Now they want peace because they are losing. Humanity rejects their request. We will not stop until the Krill Empire is broken beyond repair. To every peaceful species watching, we apologize for what comes next. Stay out of Krill space. Do not interfere. This is not your fight, but we will finish it. Captain Sophie Turner commanded the newly formed Vengeance Fleet. She had been a cargo ship pilot before the war, running supplies between colonies. Her ship had been in transit when New Boston was destroyed. By the time she heard the news, her parents, her brother, and her entire hometown were ash. Now she commanded 2,000 warships, most of them as rough and hastily built as her own flagship. Her orders from General Hayes were simple and brutal. Take the war to the Krill homeworld. They wanted to be conquerors, she told her assembled captains via video conference. Let's teach them what happens when they pick a fight with humans. The Vengeance Fleet did not attack Krill military bases. Those were heavily defended and would cost too many human lives. Instead, Sophie went after infrastructure. Shipyards where Krill vessels were built, manufacturing centers that produced their weapons, supply depots that fed their war machine, mining stations that provided their resources. The Krill Empire stretched across 40 star systems. Sophie planned to burn through all of them. But General Hayes had another weapon beyond ships and bombs. Lieutenant Jacob Ross had been a cybersecurity expert before the war, working for tech companies in California. Now he led a team that infiltrated Krill communication networks. They did not just spy. They weaponized information. Videos of the New Boston massacre began playing on every Krill public channel. They could not turn it off. Every screen in Krill space showed the same images. Human children playing in parks seconds before nuclear fire consumed them. Families huddled in shelters that melted around them. A teacher trying to protect her students as the ceiling collapsed. The videos were accompanied by simple questions in Krill language. Why did we do this? What did these children do to deserve death? How are we heroes? The Krill had never experienced psychological warfare. Their species had evolved as pack hunters who valued strength and dominance. Concepts like guilt or moral doubt were foreign to them. They had always believed that might made right, that the strong deserved to conquer the weak. Jacob's team made sure they could no longer hide behind that belief. One video became particularly widespread. It showed a 5-year-old human girl in New Boston, playing with a toy spaceship. The video was from a home security camera. The timestamp showed exactly when the Krill bombardment began. The little girl looked up at the sky, confused by the bright lights. Then the video cut to static. The next frame showed Krill soldiers celebrating the destruction of New Boston, drinking and boasting about their victory. The final frame asked one question: is this who we are? Young Krill, accessing these uncensored images for the first time, began to question everything their leaders had told them. How could they be the superior species if they needed 8,000 ships to fight primates from one planet? Why had their leaders provoked a species the ancient progenitors warned about? What kind of victory came from murdering children? On the Krill homeworld of Kreshnar, protests began. Small at first, then growing. Senator Vinkar, a minor political figure, stood before the Dominion Council and spoke what everyone was thinking but afraid to say. We started a war we cannot win. Humans do not fight for territory or resources. They fight for revenge. Every ship we destroy, they build 5 more. Every colony we threaten, they fortify 10 others. We killed their civilians, so now killing us has become their moral duty. We need to surrender while our species still exists. The new warlord, Kreshtar's successor named Draknor, executed Vinkar personally in the council chamber. But executing one senator could not stop the ideas from spreading. The Krill Dominion was fracturing from within. Meanwhile, Sophie's vengeance fleet systematically destroyed Krill infrastructure. They hit the orbital shipyards around Treshnak. They bombed the weapons factories on Vrel Prime. They destroyed the supply depot network that connected Krill colonies. Captain Ellen Wright led a daring raid on the primary Krill military academy on Threshnor 3. Her Marines, wearing armor that barely qualified as spaceworthy, stormed the facility, but they were not there to kill cadets. They were there to deliver a message. Ellen stood in the academy's main hall surrounded by captured Krill students and spoke to the cameras she knew were recording. You are being trained to conquer galaxies. Let me show you what you will actually face. She played footage from the Battle of Earth. Human pilots deliberately crashing ships into Krill vessels. Civilians in burning cities organizing rescue efforts while bombardment continued. Engineers working on weapons while alarms screamed overhead. Children being evacuated while their parents stayed behind to fight. This is what humanity looks like when you threaten us, Ellen said calmly. Every single person in these videos knew they would probably die. They fought anyway. They sacrificed anyway. Now ask yourselves, do you have that same conviction? Because we are not stopping until your empire is dust. She left the cadets alive and unharmed. The message was more effective than any execution could be. The psychological impact devastated Krill morale. Surrenders became common. Entire fleets mutinied rather than face human forces. Colonies declared independence from the Dominion rather than continue the war. The Krill Empire was collapsing from within as quickly as it was being destroyed from without. 6 months into humanity's counteroffensive, the Krill controlled only their home system and 3 fortified colonies. They had lost 90% of their military capability. Their economy was destroyed. Their society was tearing itself apart. Young Krill refused to fight. Old Krill questioned whether the war had ever been justified. The Galactic Council sent Elder Zinthar to negotiate with General Hayes one final time. The old historian traveled to Earth and found Hayes in the War Command Center. The general looked exhausted, like he had not slept properly in months. His hair had gone gray. His face was lined with stress. Your species has made its point, Zinthar said carefully. The Krill are defeated. Surely now you can show mercy. Hayes gestured to a display showing reconstruction efforts across Earth. 4 billion people dead, 50 major cities destroyed, our capital burned, our infrastructure shattered. And you want me to show mercy to the species that did this? I want you to prove that humans are better than their worst fears, Zinthar replied. The Krill made a terrible mistake. They have paid for it. If you continue to the point of genocide, you become what they feared you were. Hayes was silent for a long moment. Then he pulled up a different display. It showed the Krill involved in planning and executing the New Boston Massacre. Hundreds of names, faces, and positions. We will show mercy when every person on this list faces justice, Hayes said. We will show restraint when the Krill accept that attacking civilians has consequences. We are not monsters, Elder. We do not want to destroy their species, but we will not allow the people responsible for New Boston to go free. That is not negotiable. And if they surrender, if they give you everyone on that list, then we talk about peace. Real peace. Not a ceasefire. Not a temporary truce. A peace where the Krill learn that humans are not prey. A peace where no one ever thinks glassing our colonies is acceptable. Hayes looked directly at Zinthar. You warned the galaxy about us. You were right. Now help us show them why we fight like this. The siege of Kreshnar began on a Tuesday morning, Earth Standard Time. Humanity did not arrive with overwhelming force. They did not fire a single shot. Instead, 3,000 human warships simply surrounded the Krill homeworld and waited. On every broadcast frequency, a simple message played on repeat. The people of New Boston waited for mercy too. General Hayes had made his strategy clear to his commanders. We could glass their planet in an hour. We could unleash Tombstone and erase their civilization in minutes. But we are not them. We will give them the choice they never gave us, surrender or die. But the choice will be theirs. Inside the Dominion Palace, the remaining Krill leadership argued for 3 days straight. Warlord Draknor wanted to fight to the last soldier. Senator Greshkal and others advocated for immediate surrender. The civilian population, watching human ships fill their skies, simply waited in fear for whatever came next. On the 18th day of the siege, something unexpected happened. A junior Krill officer named Tekvar stole a shuttle and flew toward the human fleet. She broadcast a simple message. I wish to speak with your commander. I have information. I wish to help end this war. Captain Sophie Turner, commanding the flagship Retribution, allowed the shuttle to approach. Tekvar was brought aboard and placed in a conference room with a live video connection to General Hayes on Earth. Tekvar's chitinous body trembled as she faced the human commander. She spoke in broken English she had learned from captured broadcasts. I was stationed at New Boston. I was there when we received orders to destroy the colony. I watched the bombardment. I saw the children burn. Hayes leaned forward. Why are you here, Officer Tekvar? Because what we did was wrong, she said simply. Our commanders told us humans were dangerous, that you needed to be destroyed before you became too strong. They were right that you are dangerous, but only because you remember, and you do not forgive. I am here to surrender on behalf of my people before you do to us what we did to your colony. She placed a data storage device on the table. This contains the complete roster of everyone involved in the New Boston massacre. Names, positions, command structure, who gave which orders, everything. I am giving you what you need for your trials. Please, General Hayes, let the rest of us live. Hayes studied the young officer for a long moment. You understand that we will execute war criminals? That justice for New Boston is not negotiable? Yes, execution is terrible. But extinction is worse. You have proven you could destroy our world. You have surrounded our planet for weeks. You could have killed us all by now. But you waited. You showed restraint. Please show more. Hayes looked at his advisors. Dr. Lisa Campbell, who had lost her sister in New Boston. Commander Angela Brooks, whose brother had died in the bombing. Lieutenant Jacob Ross, whose entire hometown was a crater. Each one had personal reasons to want revenge. Each one nodded. Send the surrender terms to your government, Hayes said finally. Complete disarmament. Trials for war crimes. Reparations for 50 years. The Krill military will be permanently dissolved. Joint Human and Galactic Council peacekeeping forces will occupy your territory for 1 generation, and every Krill child will learn about New Boston in their schools. They will learn what happened. They will learn why it was wrong, and they will learn what happens when you push humanity to the edge. Tekvar's relief was visible even across species. We accept all terms. We will broadcast acceptance immediately. Within 48 hours, the Krill Dominion formally surrendered. Warlord Draknor, rather than face trial and execution, took his own life. 3,000 Krill officers and officials were arrested and prosecuted for war crimes. The trials took 2 years. 700 were found guilty and executed. The rest received sentences ranging from life imprisonment to permanent exile from Krill space, but General Hayes had one final move that would reshape galactic politics forever at Iker. The Treaty of Meridian Station, where the final surrender documents were signed. Hayes stood before representatives from every major civilization in the galaxy. The chamber was silent as he began to speak. We have won this war. The Krill Dominion is broken. Justice for New Boston will be served. But humanity has learned something terrible about ourselves. We learned we can match atrocity with atrocity. We learned we can become monsters when someone tries to destroy us, and that knowledge frightens us as much as it frightens you. He activated a holographic display that showed technical specifications for every weapon humanity had developed during the war. Kinetic penetrators, autonomous combat drones, psychological warfare techniques, and yes, even the complete technical data for Project Tombstone. The room erupted in shocked voices. Elder Zinthar stood. General Hayes, you cannot be serious. You are revealing your most classified weapons? Yes, Hayes confirmed. We want every species to see what we built. We want you to understand what humans are capable of when pushed to extinction. These weapons exist because the krill forced us to create them. We do not want to use them ever again. But if another species decides humanity needs exterminating, they will face everything you have seen here and worse." He paused, letting that sink in. "This is our warning and our promise. Humanity wants peace. We want to explore, trade, learn from other species. But we will never again allow anyone to threaten our civilians without consequences. What happened to the krill happens to any aggressor, every time. No exceptions." Council Director Veshinar spoke carefully. "What exactly are you proposing?" "A new galactic charter with one simple addition," Hayes replied. "Any species that attempts genocide faces immediate and total warfare from all signatory members. Not just humans, everyone. We make it clear that attacking civilians is unacceptable. We enforce it with overwhelming force. We create a galaxy where what happened to New Boston never happens again." The proposal was debated for 3 months. Some species worried about giving up sovereignty. Others feared it gave too much power to military forces. But most recognized the simple truth. The krill had started a war of extinction and had been crushed for it. The next aggressor would face the same fate, but from multiple species working together. The new charter passed with only 2 dissenting votes. Over the next decade, humanity became the galaxy's unexpected peacekeepers, not because they were peaceful by nature, but because everyone knew what happened when they were not. Former krill territories were slowly integrated into a new coalition government. Humans helped rebuild the infrastructure they had destroyed. They trained krill in peaceful governance. They established schools that taught both species' children about the war and why it must never happen again. Commander Paul Henderson, who had survived his suicide run through a miracle and a faulty detonator, became ambassador to the Krill Reconciliation Project. He spent his days helping young krill understand the cost of aggressive warfare and teaching them about human values like mercy and justice. "You tried to kill us," he told a classroom of krill students. "My species almost wiped yours out in response." Both sides learned hard lessons. Your lesson was that humans fight back harder than you expect. Our lesson was that winning a war is easy. Building peace afterward is the real challenge. Captain Sophie Turner retired from military service 5 years after the war ended. She founded the New Boston Memorial Foundation, dedicated to ensuring the massacre was never forgotten. The foundation built monuments, funded education programs, and worked with the Galactic Council to prevent future genocides. Dr. Lisa Campbell personally destroyed all active research related to Project Tombstone. The technical data was sealed in archives with protocols requiring unanimous consent from 50 species before it could be accessed. She told General Hayes, "We built it because we had no choice. But now we have a choice. We choose not to keep building weapons of extinction." General Victor Hayes himself stepped down as commander of Human Defense Forces 3 years after the treaty was signed. He gave only one interview before retiring to a quiet farm in Montana. "People call me a hero," he said to the reporter. "I am not. I did what was necessary to save my species. Billions died because I could not save them fast enough. Trillions more lived because we fought back. History will judge whether I made the right choices. I can only hope that no one ever has to make those choices again." Elder Zinthar lived another century, his long lifespan allowing him to see the full impact of the human-krill war. He wrote extensively about humanity's role in galactic civilization. His final published work became required reading in universities across hundreds of worlds. The progenitors warned that humanity would become unstoppable if pushed to extinction. They were correct in ways they did not fully predict. Humans did not stop at defeating the krill. They stopped at rebuilding them. They did not conquer the galaxy after demonstrating their military superiority. They built a peace enforced by the memory of war. They became guardians not because they wanted power, but because they understood its cost better than anyone. He concluded with these words: "The krill learned what happens when you threaten humans with extinction. The galaxy learned what humans do with power once they have it. They could have ruled through fear. Instead, they built institutions to ensure no one ever faces what they faced. The greatest irony is this: the species we feared would destroy